showing up today. Glad to see such a crowd. So today we have Jesse Schell with us. I'm just going to spend a few minutes to introduce him. So in 1994, Jesse got his Master's of Science in Computer Networking and Virtual Reality at CMU. And then in 95, he joined the Walt Disney Imagineering company, where he was a programmer, manager, and designer, and creative director of several projects. And among those projects, he helped creating some rides for the theme parks, Disney Quest, and also an online game called Toontown. So I didn't grow up in the US, so I don't know those two things, but maybe you do. And then in 2002, when Randy Posh founded the Entertainment Technology Center next door, he invited Jesse Schell to join him. And so that's when Jesse came back to Pittsburgh and he's now a professor at the ETC. And he teaches building virtual worlds and game design over there. That same year in 2002, he also founded a company called Schell Games, where he's involved in game design and development. And I don't know if you've ever seen the company, you probably walked next to it many times, but it's on Station Square. So if you go for a ducky tour, it's right next to it. And so it's a company that employs more than 100 people. He's also a writer. He published a book in 2008 on the art of game design. So we are really lucky today to have someone like Jesse Schell. He seems to be, from what I understand, a very, very talented person who's given many, many talks, speech, seminars on the topic today. And we all know here as trainees, postdoc, PhD, how hard it is in academia and how we can lose focus because we're always, focusing on our Western blot PCRs and all that, but it's hard to sometimes keep being creative. And that's what we want to talk about today. And so we're very lucky to have Jesse Schell today talking to us about all that creativity. So that's for you now.
Cool. What if I hit the presentation button on the lights better, or is it better to have them all off? Looks like
some lights would be better.
Yeah, you'd think so, right? Let me try that one more time.
There's a presentation mode.
Yeah, I know, but there we go. I didn't press hard enough. I wasn't courageous enough. There. That's there we got it. Okay, well, that was a super good introduction. That'll save me some time here at the beginning, right? Because as mentioned, right, I'm the CEO of Schell Games. I teach over at Carnegie Mellon. I used to be at Disney, and I wrote the art of game design. Right, so we covered all that, so that's good. So I guess I want you to just understand some of what I've really been up to. I wanted to show you a little bit about Schell Games and what Schell Games is about here. If I can figure out with this magic clicker how to click something. Click. Magic clicker. Click, you're right, use the mouse. That's the wise thing to do. Click. There we go.
Hi, I'm Chris, and welcome to Schell Games. Today I'd like to take you on a tour of the studio to show you how we make games that change the world. We believe that games are a powerful way to communicate. Our studio uses entertainment mechanics to transform players in a meaningful and positive way. We call these experiences transformational games. Let's start the tour up top in the crow's nest. Our CEO, Jesse Schell, came to Pittsburgh in 2002 from Disney Imagineering to join the faculty at the Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon University. Also in 2002, he founded Schell Games. Since then, we've grown from 5 employees to a full-service game design and development studio of over 100. But no matter how big we grow, we'll always be a place where amazing people can be their best creative selves. This is where our engineers, artists, designers, and producers work together to create experiences ranging from mobile games to theme park attractions. This requires our teams to be very flexible and open to new ideas, technologies, and platforms. We've worked with amazing partners that share our passion for games and their ability to transform a player. Here we are now in our demo room. Schell Games has partnered with Yale University Medical School for the iPad game Play Forward Elm City Stories. The goal of this game is to prevent HIV infection among ethnic minority adolescents. Players navigate their avatar through a series of real-world situations and experience the long-term impact of everyday decisions. Race to the Beach is a location-based experience developed for SeaWorld. The experience is installed next to the sea turtle exhibits in Orlando and San Diego. The game allows families to come together, play, and learn about the secret world of turtles. Here, we have a suite of games we developed for Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood for the PBS Kids website. These games are designed for kids from 2 to 5 years old and help emphasize Daniel Tiger's message of social and emotional learning. Welcome to the lounge. This is where employees come to eat, drink, and be merry. One of the best things about working at Schell Games is getting to hang out with such fun and nice people. Our employees have sponsored clubs almost every single night, ranging from book clubs to movie clubs to board game nights to video game nights. Because most of our employees are not from Pittsburgh, we've developed a close-knit but very welcoming culture. Schell Games is located across the river from downtown Pittsburgh, one of America's most livable cities. Pittsburgh combines everything that's great about a big city with the friendliness of a small town. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, there you go. So you get some idea of kind of what Schell Games is about, because some of what I'll be talking about today are some of the things that we've done there. So today I wanted to make sure that what I wanted to do is make this kind of a personal talk today. I wanted to talk about 4 things that have happened in my life that I'm particularly proud of and how they came about, because I've found again and again when I look at the things that have worked out, the projects that have been successful, there are certain patterns that show up again and again in those. So I was just going to tell you some stories about some of these things that I've been involved with and have done, and how some of that might be useful. So I was going to start talking about how I ended up becoming a Disney Imagineer, because I think I was as surprised as anybody when that happened. And so it's kind of a long story. It started a while ago. So that was me when I was about 4 years old. I was a little shorter back then. And even when I was really that young, I was really interested in experiences that seemed magical in any way. And sometimes that meant technology, and sometimes that just meant, I don't know, sometimes it meant games, sometimes it meant theatrical entertainment. It meant all kinds of things. But it was something, even when I was very young, and technology was definitely a big piece of it. So here's me a little bit older. I was about 17 years old here. You can see my styling nerd culture periodic table shirt that I'm wearing right there. At this point I was in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we had kind of a special high school, because back in the 1980s we had a lot of computers. We had hundreds of computer terminals in the school. And so they were frequently bringing by people to check it out. So here we have the Minister of Education from the Netherlands came to the school to sort of see what's up with our computer system. And I was really surprised when the teacher of my computer class said, hey, when he comes, I want you to show, you know, those things you work on. I'm like, you mean the things for class, the class assignments? He's like, no, I see those other projects that you're doing. I want you to show them those, because those look really cool. And that really surprised me that, wait a minute, you mean the things that you've been making me do are not the things that are interesting? The things that I've been pursuing out of my own curiosity are the things that we want to show off to everybody. And yes, that's how it is. And I found again and again, this business of pursuing things on your own, out of your own curiosity, ends up leading to much more useful places than just following the system. So to that end, one of the things I got really into was circus performing. I was sort of the boy who ran off and joined the circus. When I was a teenager, I got all into juggling, and there you see me spinning plates right there with the Jugglers Guild. And I really looked at this seriously as a career because it was really fun, it was really interesting, but then I thought, I don't know if I'd also like to eat 3 meals a day. So I started thinking about other career possibilities. I've always been into the programming, like I mentioned. I ended up going to Rensselaer up in Albany. You can see this is a serious engineering school. Their motto, knowledge and thoroughness. Right? They're pretty serious. And when it comes to computer science, they're very serious. It's an old school built in 1824, built on an old monastery, a monastery that was built in the 1700s that they ended up inheriting and built there. And what they didn't want to do is they didn't want to tear down the church, but nor did they want a giant stone church in the middle of their campus. So being Rensselaer, with their knowledge and thoroughness, it became the computer center. Right? So this is just, how serious do they take computer science? Oh, pretty serious. It's a little different now, but when I was there, the place where the altar should have been, there was a mainframe. Right? Anyway, so I got a really good computer science education at Rensselaer, and I started really pursuing artificial intelligence. Not that that was part of the curriculum. Back in the 80s, this is going to sound crazy, but it's true. Back in the 80s, we all really thought by the year 2000, computers would be as intelligent as human beings. We actually believed that. Well, we were wrong about that. But there was a lot of hype and talk about artificial intelligence. I was really into it, so I spent a lot of my undergraduate years trying to find ways to pursue that, reaching out to professors who were doing that and finding ways to kind of be a part of their projects. One of the other things I really got into was college radio. I had a lot of fun doing that. Wednesdays at midnight, the Laughter Hour Show. Me and my roommate had this comedy radio show we did for 4 years, every Wednesday. Anyway, so that was all just stuff I kind of pursued on my own. When it was time to graduate, I ended up looking at different jobs. One of them that was interesting to me was Bell Communications Research, because Bell Labs was famous for doing a lot of artificial intelligence. And so I kind of approached them. And they said, yeah, we're doing some hiring, but it's more in the realm of kind of programming the phone system. And I said, well, yeah, maybe. Are you sending people to grad school? I've heard Bell Labs send people to grad school. And they said, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Well, we do with this one program, this computer networking program. We do send people to that. If you're interested in this information networking degree, that could be a possibility. And I thought, well, yeah, sure, maybe I'd be interested. I ended up getting a job offer contingent on me going for this computer networking degree. And I'm thinking, man, do I really want to do this? Because this was, you got to remember, computer networking in 1992, there was no web, right? Computer networking was some like dull stuff, right? And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do computer networking. That's super boring stuff. I want to do cool stuff. I want to do the artificial intelligence stuff. And when I needed to think hard about things, I would always go and play pinball. So I'm out playing pinball and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I want to do stuff that's really cool. I'd love to do something like build this pinball machine. That would be awesome. How do you build a pinball machine? I never thought about that. Well, what's a pinball machine? It's got a bunch of sensors that communicate to each other through signals. Oh, god damn it, it's computer networking. Right? And I realized, all right, clearly you can do some cool stuff with computer networking. So I signed up, and I ended up taking the position, and that's what brought me to Carnegie Mellon, because that's where the information networking program was. And a lot of people in our program you had to choose a thesis, and a lot of people chose the thesis optimizing the phone system. Sure, sounds kind of cool, maybe, but I'd heard about that there was some virtual reality stuff going on campus. So there's somebody doing one of my virtual reality worlds from 1993, back when virtual reality headsets, we didn't call them headsets, we called them helmets, because they protect your head. And so I got all into doing the virtual reality stuff, which was really cool, really fun, and I learned a lot doing that. Then I got married. There's me getting married to Naira right there. Oh, and my best man he was my partner on the radio show, so he's right there. And when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Disney World. I had never been to Disney World. I'd always loved amusement parks and things, but Disney World wasn't something our family did. And my wife said, yeah, that'd be kind of fun. We should do that. And all right, so sure, well, I signed up to do that. And I was blown away. I had no idea about the level of quality and the level of design that went into the parks. And I was really kind of taken aback. And one of the things we saw there was the Aladdin's Magic Carpet virtual reality experience, which was quietly being shown at Epcot Center in 1993. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was the best looking virtual reality I'd ever seen. I mean, here I'd been at Carnegie Mellon Graduate School looking at all these virtual reality experiences, and this was just better. How is it even possible that they are doing it better than like some of the top PhD research is doing it? So I started asking them, do you guys have jobs available? Like, oh, no, nothing like that, nothing available. And I was like, man, that's kind of a bummer. And so I went back to work at the phone company. There you go, programming graphical network maps. And it was kind of killing me a little bit. And I remember the day of breaking point. One of the vice presidents making a big speech. And he says, you know what sets us apart, what makes us really different? Our company, you gotta think about Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. And I'm like, where is this going? He says, because our company, we're like the coyote. And I'm thinking, where is this going? He says, because you know what the coyote does? He always catches the Roadrunner. And at that point I thought, I need to get out of here. This place has some challenges and problems. And lucky for me, I end up seeing on a news feed like a job opening at the Disney Virtual Reality Studio. And what are they looking for? They're looking for somebody who is familiar with virtual reality, check. Somebody who knows how to do artificial intelligence programming, yes. Somebody who knows how to do sound editing. I spent 4 years doing college radio, I know how to do that. And last one, someone who knows how to put on a show. I'm like, oh, yes, I've done all those things. And so 3 weeks later, I ended up moving out to Los Angeles and started working at the virtual reality studio. And this was a huge deal for me because this is like the 7 years I spent there, that's where I really got my education in how to bring technology and entertainment together. I'd always been interested in those two things, but bringing them together was something I hadn't really done, and I really learned an awful lot about it. And when I look back and like, well, how did I get there? Was it like some grand plan that like, this is where I always wanted to go? No, it was I pursued a bunch of other things. I pursued the AI because it was in front of me at the time and it was interesting. And I pursued the radio stuff and I pursued a number of things, but then over time, those kind of cumulatively added up to something that got me in the right place at the right time. So there is the 1995 virtual reality studio. You can see here's me. Oh, I got little pointers. As you can see, there's me down there. Randy Pausch, who you may have heard of, he was hiding up in the back there because he ended up doing a sabbatical at the laboratory because he'd seen the same thing as me. He'd been doing all this PhD level virtual reality. He sees the Disney stuff. He's like, this isn't possible. How are they doing it? And he learned the secret, as I learned it. The secret was you don't just bring in the technologists. You bring in the technologists and the artists together because the artists know things about how things should look and what reality feels like. And when the two of them work together, you can create things you can never do with just art alone or just with technology alone. And it was very much based on his experience working there that he and Don Marinelli ended up starting the Entertainment Technology Center, which is a group entirely about bringing together artists and technologists and teaching them how to work together to invent things that couldn't be done previously. So I did some cool stuff while I was there. We built this thing called Disney Quest. Anyone ever been to that down in Florida? It's sort of Disney's virtual reality theme park. That was super fun. And then, this is the next thing I wanted to talk about. I ended up becoming the lead designer on Disney's Toontown Online, which was the first massively multiplayer game for kids. So the steps to that were also kind of interesting. So we've been doing the virtual reality stuff for the parks. We've been doing Disney Quest. We were trying to think about what to do next. When I was back at Carnegie Mellon, my thesis was about virtual reality, but it couldn't just be about virtual reality. I'm at the Computer Networking Institute. I'm at the Information Networking Institute. It's got to be about networking. So the way my thesis happened was I'd heard there was this one professor over in the Studio for Creative Inquiry doing this VR stuff, and I just go and knock on his door. And he's like, yes, who are you? And I said, yeah, hi, I'm just wondering, you're doing this virtual reality stuff, right? He's like, yeah. I said, do you need anybody to kind of do computer network programming for you? And he says, well, yes, I do. And I said, well, why? And he says, well, I'm creating the Networked Virtual Reality Art Museum. And I said, what is that? He says, I have no idea. And I need help to figure it out. So he needed help to do that. So we ended up, my whole thesis was about how do you build, since it was about networked virtual reality, how do you build servers for massively multiplayer games? Those didn't exist back then, and we didn't know they existed, but I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And so that had been my whole thesis. What's the best way to architect those? And when we were looking at where to go next with virtual reality at Disney, it's like we should go into networked experiences. Now, there had been a project at Disney Research and Development that was all about this. And it was a project that was killing me because no one on the team wanted to build anything. Everybody just wanted to talk endlessly and draw network diagrams forever until the end of time about what the best thing to do was. And they did that for maybe a year and a half. And so I was like kind of watching it and talking to them, but I'm like, man, this is just, you're just gonna talk yourself for, you're just gonna talk forever. And then the guy in charge of that project, he ended up leaving. Someone asked if I wanted to take it over. I said, yeah, sure, but I'm gonna do it differently. And I did it differently. We just built something, right? So we just said, look, let's show what you can do with this stuff. We built this game called Toon Tag. This is unfortunately the best photo I could find of it. It was just simple, 4 players get to be Minnie and Goofy and Mickey, and they run around in a virtual world and they play tag. And it sounds super simple, but back then, the question of could Mickey even be in 3D? We'd never seen 3D Mickey before. We weren't really sure it was possible. Would it look good? There was a lot that was we were just sort of, I don't know, just kind of throwing it out there. And so we built this as a demo, and then a really lucky thing happened. The head was showing this demo of, see, the future, people can play games online with each other. This could be a thing. The head of Disney Online, who was in charge of their web pages, came by and he saw it. And he says, can we put this in Epcot Center? And I said, what? This is just a demo. Why would you take a tech demo and install it in the front of the public? He's like, look, here's what happened. We had $500,000 to kind of build this installation, and we gave it to this creative team, and they just talked and talked and talked. And like, all we've got left is $50,000. And I'm in real trouble if I don't get something up. And this seems mostly done. Do you think if I gave you, if I gave your team $50,000, could you finish this and get it up? And we're like, sure, man, we'll find a way. So we do that, we get it up. It does really well. It's installed at Epcot Center for about 9 years and ends up being really popular. But at that time, now, the head of Disney Online has looked at us very favorably. And our team is really worried because Disney Quest is over. Our virtual reality had a big hype curve in the 90s, and then people were like, this isn't as cool as we thought, and started going away. And we got a team of 25 people, and we're all going to get the chop, potentially. We better come up with something. So me and a couple other guys on the team, we come up with this new concept, the virtual reality online theme park. Online, massively multiplayer theme parks. What? What does that mean? Well, it's really our way of trying to get Disney to go into making massively multiplayer games. We'd seen Ultima Online, we'd seen EverQuest, those were popular. Disney was like, ugh, that online stuff, you can't possibly make it for families. It's not possible, it couldn't be safe. And I could have said, yeah, I guess you're right, or I guess you're not listening, you don't care about this. But instead, I took that as a message that, wait, what I hear you telling me is if I can find a way to make this safe, that we should do it. And they're like, well, maybe. And so we came up with these safety systems that were really solid. And then we gave them this big pitch. Because the problem with the Walt Disney Company, you can go and ask for $300,000 to do something, and you can go and ask for $100 million to do something. But to ask for $5 million to get something done, good luck. That just doesn't happen. So we said, well, then let's go ask for $100 million. So we had this big pitch all about the online theme park. And here was our argument. We said it was always technology that made theme parks possible. When Disneyland was built in 1955, it was the technology that made it possible. It was the freeway system. Before the freeway system, people could only drive on average at 35 miles an hour. Once the freeway system was put in place by Eisenhower, We were able to have people drive at 55 to 60 miles an hour. They were now Disneyland was a sustainable enterprise because you could have enough people come in one day to make it a viable business. Then Disney World, also made possible by a transportation technology, affordable air travel. Now people can travel at 700 miles an hour. And this made a much larger theme park placed in a remote Florida a totally viable enterprise. And so our argument was we now have a new transportation mechanism, because this is the 90s, remember, the web is totally new. A new transportation mechanism where everyone can travel at the speed of light, and we should build a theme park for it. And they were like, wow, that's quite a pitch. Well, we're not giving you $100,000, I mean $100 million, that's not happening. But we might give you like, I don't know, $5 million to try something, right? And we said, well, that's disappointing, but okay. Right? And that's all we wanted anyway, so that worked out. And so we built it. And so we built Toontown Online. And it worked out. It was really popular. It ran for, it only shut down recently. It ran for about 10 solid years. Had a huge fan base. People did all kinds of crazy things in the world. It grew and changed over time. It was super fun. We started to see that these characters really meant something to people when people started doing stuff like cross-stitching their avatars, talking to Mickey. We started seeing that it really had meaning for people because we designed it. You know, it wasn't just like, let's make a game. We said, look, there's a lot of these games out here that are about kind of just violence and kind of being a jerk. What if we made a game that kids and parents could play together and they liked playing it together? And that really seemed to work out. And even after Disney did decide to close it down, when the whole massive multiplayer market started to shrink, a weird thing happened. There's all these kids who grew up with it and played it for like 10 years, their whole life growing up. When it shut down, they were devastated because it was an important part of their social life. So they hacked into the system, stole all the code, and now they run all their own servers. And there are more people playing it now than when it was officially run by Disney. And I keep like, it's fascinating Disney hasn't shut them down. They could totally do that, but they don't. And it's just interesting watching these things happen. But they even threw their own festival. They had this big event where they all got together. It's crazy. So the next one I wanted to talk about was the book I wrote, The Art of Game Design, and just talking about how this came about, because it's another thing that I think I'm pretty proud of, and it turned out pretty well. So the beginning of this, for me, I told you I'd always been fascinated with entertainment, and in my early days at the Disney VR studio, I found this book, Understanding Comics. How many people read this book? It's a wonderful book if you care about like what comics are and how they work. And it was amazing because it really breaks down the psychology of how weird comics are and how comics actually work. And I thought this book was brilliant. The whole book is written in comic form to talk about comics. It's just an absolutely brilliant piece of work. And I thought, this is great. I want to do this for like all of entertainment. So I started working on my little project I called Understanding Entertainment, where I tried to kind of document all the psychological structures I knew that like contributed to the nature of how entertainment works. I didn't know what I was going to do with this, but I thought maybe one day it'll be a book. Understanding Entertainment would be great. Well, one day, after I start at Carnegie Mellon, now I'm a professor. I'm like wearing a coat and stuff, and I'm at a conference, and Elsevier Publishing, fancy science publisher, comes up to me and says, "Hey, I know you've been working on that Panda 3D game engine." I said, "Yep, that's true. I work with that. We'd love to have you write a book about that." And I said, "Wow, nope, not interested. That sounds super boring to write a book about an open source game engine. I mean, you could do it, but I don't think that many people will buy it." And Panda 3D was kind of, people know the Unity game engine. It was kind of an early competitor for that. Like, I'm not super interested, but nope, not interested. Let me tell you about this idea, Understanding Entertainment. This is my thing, and I really want to do it. And they said, wow, no, we're not. We wouldn't want to buy a book about understanding entertainment. Like, that doesn't target any specific industry. That's not going to work. But you know, now that you say that, what we do need is someone to write a game design. We'd really love it if someone made like a game design book. And would you want to do that? And I thought about it at first. I'm like, game design? That's so narrow compared to all of entertainment. But I am teaching a class in game design now, and a lot of the things from understanding entertainment totally apply to game design. And so, okay, yes, I'll do it. So I said, yes, all right, I'm going to do this thing. But now, oh my God, I've never written a book. I don't know anything about writing a book. I don't really know how I'm going to go about this. And I'm trying a lot of things. And I found these two books that really helped me out. One of them is No Plot, No Problem, all about how to write a novel in 30 days. That's good, right? And it's coming right up. There's a thing called National Novel Writers Month, which is November, where all these people get together online and they say, we are each going to write a novel this month. And we're going to write a 50,000-word novel. We're going to bang it out this month, post your progress every day, and people do it all the time. Right? And it's mainly about getting yourself on a schedule and just like not being afraid and going in and doing it. And the other one was John Steinbeck. I would argue he wrote the greatest American novel, East of Eden, and he published his diary that he kept while he was writing East of Eden. And it's amazing. I think he was about 60 when he's writing this book, an incredibly accomplished author, and he's terrified each day when he's writing. He thinks it's no good, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's not sure where he's going, and I'm like, wow, if he can be insecure, it's okay for me to be insecure when you do this, but you do just have to stick with and do it. So I'm like, all right, it's okay to be insecure, stick in, be patient, just keep doing it. Okay, well, but still kind of hard, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I'm talking to the old, gray-haired game design experts. I'm like, hey, I'm going to write a game design book. There aren't very many game design books out there. I'm not sure how to do it, but I'm trying. And they say, nope, you can't do it. It doesn't work. And I'm like, what do you mean? I've tried to do it, it doesn't. Because anything that you give advice about is right in some contexts and wrong in other contexts. So anything you say, wrong. And I'm like, well, that's not encouraging at all. But then I started thinking about it, well, I'm like, yeah, they're kind of right. Any advice you give, it can be right in one case and wrong in another case. But I started realizing one of the things that can't be wrong are questions. Questions about, should you look at this, and should you look at that, and should you look at this other thing? The answer might be yes, the answer might be no, but the questions make you think, and the questions guide you in design. And I ended up thinking, that's a pretty good anchor. But the problem is, how am I going to make this book work? And I started doing all these things. I started keeping all these notes about structures, and here's how is it going to work, and I had all these like bits and pieces, and I found that I started drawing diagrams. I wanted to kind of figure out what's the flow of the book. And I started using kind of a color-coded system for the different topics and how they were going to weave together, and a really weird thing happened. Gradually, the words fell away, and I found myself just kind of, I look back at these, this was like, I don't know, 12 years ago now. I don't even know what these colors meant anymore, but like black was something, and blue was something, and green was something, and I found myself drawing these shapes. This was like a huge breakthrough one for me. No idea. I look back now, I don't know what this was, but like after I'd like drawn this diagram, I'm like, yes, I understand what this book is now. And I just kind of went with it. I just like, I don't know, I'd like to make it work, so I just kind of stayed persistent and kept doing it. So then once I kind of had the, like, okay, I know what the shape is, I started thinking, got all these ideas, how to structure it, because books want to be linear, but design's not linear. Everything in design is connected to everything else. How can I go linearly through a thing that's inherently non-linear? And I started to get this idea that like, hey, maybe a map is the way to do it, because that's how a map is. Everything's connected to everything else on a map. So I started trying to draw maps, but it was tricky to figure out how to do it. And then I thought of the International Space Station. Can you imagine trying to build the International Space Station? You're going to go up into space and build this, right? And the thing is, you have to live in it while you build it, right? So how do you build this? What are you going to build first?
Toilet.
Exactly. This is the room you need to use the most times in a day. And you're in space. And so you better build this first. So they build a bathroom first. And they started yeah, we need to build the most frequently used things first, and then we'll build out from there. And I thought, that is, yeah, of course you do it that way. And so I ended up designing the book that way as well. I figured out the things that were most key and most core. I put them in the center of the map, and then I figured everything else branching off of there, and that totally worked. Okay, and then the book got published, and it did really well. It's been incredibly well received. It's now in its second edition. I think it's netted revenues of over $1 million. I wish I'd seen some of that $1 million, but the publisher has seen $1 million from that book, so it's excellent for them. Okay, so the next project I wanted to talk about was a Schell Games project called Happy Atoms. And this is a super fun project, and it's got a video, so I'll just show you the video.
Chemistry is an incredibly important subject that many students don't fully grasp.
We'll give it a second. Come on, computer, breathe. It's cool, man. It's cool. Page it all in there, and now I'm going to hit play.
Knowledge of chemistry is necessary.
This is what happens using other people's computers. All right, that's cool. I'll just tell you about it. All right, that's fine. Yeah, maybe I can even jump around and show like cool pictures. No, not really happening. All right, cool. So we'll just jump out of that. Here, I'll tell you the story of how it came about. I told you when I was a kid I really liked things that seemed magical. Chemistry is definitely one of those things that seems really magical. I found this great series of kids' books about this boy who meets a weird old lady in the park who gives him a magic chemistry set. And he has all kinds of adventures with his magic chemistry set. They don't publish these books anymore. I wonder why. But he was always turning invisible or talking to his dog or all kinds of crazy things that happened through this magic chemistry set. So when I started getting older, going to high school, I started thinking, chemistry, I'm going to be so excited about chemistry. And no, I had big expectations about chemistry, but wow, the realities of chemistry, oh my God, it was like so painful and dull and algebraic, and it was absolutely killing me, and it was so disappointing. And I was really bummed about that, because like it had been kind of a lifelong dream that Mrs. Markle shattered, right? And so that kind of was a bummer. Then I go to Rensselaer, and of course, in the part of the computer science curriculum back then, you had to take like 2 semesters of chemistry. And like, yikes, it's really hard, and I'm having a really hard time. Chemistry is still super hard, and I'm really challenged. But I discovered something that I fell in love with, Lewis diagrams. Oh my God, I could actually understand this. These are like sort of spatial conceptions of how things connected to other things, and I'm like, these are great. But why are you making me do it all in my head? Why doesn't someone just build Legos out of these so that everybody can understand chemistry? But whatever, so I just learned Lewis diagrams, and that was cool. But it always stayed with me, it was always on my mind. And because they have these Legos, but God, they're just these balls and sticks. These don't teach you anything about how things actually bond. You can build anything with this nonsense, right? And this set here is from 1935, and they look the same today. They haven't changed at all. And so that kind of made me crazy. It had always been on my mind. And so at some point I started saying, you know what, maybe I could just build this myself, right? So I started fooling around with, what if I built these out of like ribbons and snaps and made that work? And it kind of worked, and I started testing it with kids. And so then I started testing with magnets, because it's like, maybe magnets would be better. It shows the bonds a little better. And this was just a thing I was fooling around in my basement. And I had an opportunity to, a local elementary school calls me up. We're having Science Day. Can you come and talk about video games for Science Day? I said I could. How about instead I talked about science? And they said, do you know anything about science? I'm like, yes. No, not really, but I have this chemistry thing that I'd like to try with kids. And they said, okay, yeah, you can try that out. Maybe this video will work. We'll see.
There's a number of hydrogen. Yeah,
oh boy, I don't know what this is.
Yes!
Right? And so here I am dealing with 5th and 6th graders. I gave them a 5-minute prep about like, yep, atoms are unhappy unless they have their bonding sites covered. Figure out how to cover them up and you'll build molecules. And like at the end of the session of them just playing with it for half an hour, you can talk to them about it. Tell me about, these are kids who didn't know that atoms existed, right, a half hour ago. And then you could ask them questions like, well, so tell me, what atoms are useful atoms? Oh, hydrogen. Oh, we couldn't get enough hydrogen. Oh, oxygen's good. Carbon's interesting. It bonds with everything. And I love this, that just kind of building it on their own, they could discover it and they could get it. The problem, of course, was that they would build it and they didn't know what they built. And yep, I don't have the video here to show you, but so what we basically did is we built an app that, I'll advance to some of the more advanced ones, because we started fiddling around, maybe springs, maybe rubber, maybe strings, and then eventually we got to a form that was kind of like this, that worked with magnets and rubber pieces. And so what we did is we built an app that does a visual scan. You can snap a picture of it, and it figures out what molecule it is, and it tells you exactly what it is. I think we're looking at caffeine right here. And so then we started turning it into a game, which is kind of like a Pokemon game. Okay, kids, here's a bunch of atoms. See if you can catch all the molecules, right? There are 20,000 molecules you can build, like I said, right? And so that's been pretty exciting. And so we've been building this just kind of on our own, just kind of, first it was just me kind of doing it in my basement, and then we had someone at Shell Games had a little extra time, like, can you work on this? It's not an official project, but let's just do it, and we'll get it moving. And I bump into this guy at a conference who works at this company, Wested, and he says, hey, I heard about this grant, a science grant for kind of science games. You doing any science games? And I'm like, we're fooling around with an idea for one. And he's like, yeah, I'll show you how to apply for the grant. So we ended up applying for the grant, and what do you know? It ended up working. We ended up getting a grant for about $1 million in order to kind of turn this into a real thing. And the night that we got the grant, we were having Chinese food at home, and I opened up my fortune cookie, and my fortune is an old wish will come true. And suddenly it all came back to me. I remembered being in 3rd grade and building all these crazy inventions, because that's what I was always doing, and thinking, man, one day, I had this dream that one day someone would say, you know what, your inventions are so cool, here's $1 million. And it's like, wow, it actually did happen. So that was very, very exciting. And how did we get there, right? There wasn't any clear plan. Again, it was like, I was curious about chemistry. It frustrated me that we made it so hard to teach. Let's see if we can find a way to kind of pursue it. I am not a chemistry expert at all, which in some ways has helped because it's an educational tool, so I've been getting an education as I go, but in a lot of ways it massively hinders. I did eventually, of course, have to get experts involved in it, but again, it was about curiosity followed up by just not giving up. I think I've worked on this thing just as a hobby for probably 4 or 5 year period before it ended up kind of getting someplace. And so then it got kind of cool. This is a thing we always do at Shell Games. We always make what we call pillar posters. We figure out what is this thing really about, and we make posters kind of explaining, what is this thing about? What are the cornerstones of this? And we are now going to be teaming up. I'm very excited to be able to announce that Thames and Cosmos, which is the world's largest manufacturer of chemistry sets, turns out they really like it, and we're going to be making it together. So it'll be out for Christmas 2016. If all goes well, so we're all excited about that. And the big dream with this, I'd seen this story a few years ago about this 10-year-old girl who had a kind of ambitious science teacher. He had a much more advanced kind of molecule building set, but still, it's just balls and sticks. And he gave it to the kids, he explained to them about how to use it, the kids started building stuff, and this 10-year-old girl builds this new molecule, right? This tetranitrooxycarbon, and she says, hey teacher, is this a thing? And he's like, well, I don't know. So he ended up sending some emails to some of his PhD chemistry friends, and they say, this should work, but it's not in any chemical catalog, and we don't know why. And they looked at it more, it's just like somehow everyone missed this one. And so Clara and her teacher ended up publishing a paper all about their discovery. So she already has a published paper at 10 years old. And so all I'm saying is, instead of having like 1 or 2 kids like this, why not have 1 million or 10 million kids who are doing this kind of exploration? So anyway, so here's my kind of big summary in terms of my takeaways, things I've learned when I look back at the things that have worked. Of course, I didn't tell all the stories about everything that went horribly wrong and all the projects that failed. I told you about talking today about ones that worked, and when I look at what things they have in common, following curiosity, it always seems to be a good thing, but it's not enough to just idly follow it. You've got to follow it to something meaningful, right? Something you personally care about, something that's personally meaningful to you. Because when it's meaningful to you, you're going to stick with it. And if you follow your curiosity to something meaningful, and then you pursue that patiently, eventually, somehow, good things always tend to happen. So thanks very much. So questions about anything? Questions, questions, questions. La, la, la. Yeah.
What was the hardest thing that you had to obstacle that you had to overcome?
Whoa.
What's the worst thing that ever happened that you feel like, oh my god, not because this happens in science for no.
Is she always like this? The worst thing that ever happened, man. I don't know. Some bad things have happened. It's tough to pick, right? Because there's always horrible things going wrong. I know when we worked on Toontown, it got canceled 3 times. It kept getting canceled for various reasons, various political reasons at Disney. People say, "What's it like working at Disney?" And I said, "Well, it's really cool because you get to work on all this great stuff with great people, and it's also like Game of Thrones every day." Because there's a lot of people kind of vying for power and things, and that ended up being how the project got canceled. But that was super disappointing, but we kept finding ways to keep it alive. We would channel money from other projects and into it, all kinds of things, because we just all believed in it, and we just kind of kept it going, and we'd always find ways to get it going. So that sucked, but that worked out okay. Other horrible things. I don't know, this talk's been all about good things. I've been all of the bad things definitely out of my mind. I don't know, there's always, I've had so many projects that I've worked on and totally loved that just haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah,
right? And oh my, it's often, and I guess with those, a lot of times it's just not knowing when to kind of stop. Like, call it quits on this. You just put too much energy, it's just not going anywhere. You can keep it as a hobby, but to like make investment in it. I think those have been the ones, like, oh, there was this idea for a title for the Nintendo DS that was all about, have people seen Inside Out, that movie, right? So imagine that as a game where like you're living inside the head of the character, and it sounds really cool, but every time we tried to make it, it was like got harder and it got more expensive and it got weirder and nobody was interested in it, and we just pushed it too long and too hard, and we didn't back off when we should have. Another one like that was this thing called GameSprout, which was a project all about why do we create a platform that lets the whole world create and share games with each other. And it was cool, and some people were into it, but there was no way that it could make money. So most of the things I've kind of run into are things where, like, yeah, this is a beautiful dream, and the money just isn't going to work out with this thing. And part of it is you have to be able to say, yep, there are some dreams that are just like, you're going to try, and they aren't going to work. But now, still, I haven't given up. Both of those projects, I'm like, one day, the right opportunity, we'll kind of keep it alive, we'll think about it, and we'll find a way. And I'll just, here's a plug right now. So one of the things we're doing at Schell Games, we've got a new game right now, No Points, which is, we do a thing every year at Schell Games. Once a year, we stop all the projects. Boop, everything stops. And everybody just works on passion projects for 1 week, right? And it's nice because everybody knows that week is coming, so people plan for it, and then they work on those passion projects, and it's often a great way to get something new started. And one of these games was this kind of funky tactics horror game that was really spooky and mysterious, and we were all really loving it. But we didn't have the money to make the whole thing. So we said, well, we'll invest in some of the money, but we'll do a Kickstarter to get the rest. And we've done a couple Kickstarters before, and they've been successful. So we thought, we'll do another one. Well, we're doing this one now, This one's a little rough, right? The people are into it, people like the game, but the word's not quite spreading as fast as we would hope. And so we're in part of that tough part right now, where everybody's being patient, but it's like we're seeing our dreams get like, oh my God, this may not make it, and we may need to set this one aside. And I think when I look at that's the hardest thing, and not everybody can handle that. I think it's one of the things that keeps people from chasing things is if you can't handle that.
I have a second question.
I'm ready.
So there's a lot of competition in that field because the technology is evolving and everybody's interested in that.
Yeah.
And so team play is the most important thing that will make a difference. So how do you pick people? How do you make your own team? What is your criteria when you hire new people? What are the
No, it's a great question. How do you pick people, right? And it's a number of things. First, you need to pick people who are excellent at what they do. Then you want to, so we always say there's three things. There's skills, just like raw skills, like what are they good at? Second one is passion. How passionate are they about what they do? And then the third one is a really interesting one. We give it the weird name, respectability, okay? Right? It's not simply respect, because it's not how much respect they get from other people. It's how much respect do they give to other people. Or actually, not how much respect they try to give, how much do other people feel respected by this person? And I know that sounds like a weird thing. How much do people feel respected by this person? But what we found is if you take these three things and multiply them together, that tells you how strong somebody is. So those are the three things that we really look for. Yeah, skills, passion, and respectability. Other questions? Yeah.
So I'm just interested. So what game platforms are making most revenues these days? Is it desktop or PlayStation, like PS, Wii, or Xbox?
Yeesh.
Or is it like mobile app games? That
Yeah.
are making
It's crazy town right now. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make money and where is the money. So when you look at what's making the most money right now, it seems like game consoles and mobile are about neck and neck in terms of the actual amount of dollars that they're making. However, if you look at the sheer number of people who are playing, mobile like dwarfs everything, because everybody is playing mobile games, just not everybody is paying. And when people do pay, they often don't pay very much. And then the worst part about mobile is 2% of the companies that make mobile games make 98% of the money. So that leaves the other 2% of the money for the other 98% of the companies. So mobile is an incredibly difficult and challenging place to be. And all of the places are getting challenging. Console has its challenges, Steam has its challenges. Part of what's happened is the fact that games are downloadable, and now anybody can make games, and anybody can upload games, has meant the market is kind of flooded with things. There's more content than people can pursue and digest. One of the problems we have, I mean, like No Point, like everyone who plays it says, wow, this is a great game. But the world's full of great games. A great game just isn't good enough. It's seeming like it needs to be a game that has some special quality that everybody wants to talk about for some reason. It's part of the reason we're getting more and more into virtual reality, because 2016, there's going to be this big explosion of virtual reality platforms. And, but a lot of people don't believe that that's going to happen. And as a result, a lot of people are staying away from it. But we're kind of placing some big bets in that. And we have 3 titles in production for various virtual reality platforms. Not that they'll be giant sellers in the first year or two, but there won't be anybody else there, right? And so I'd rather have 5% of a small market than 0.00005% of a giant market. So this is tough. It's the tough part of the business right now. And it's partly why at our studio we have a lot of diversity in terms of our projects. We do all kinds of projects because we don't know what market is going to catch, and we want to be able to shift our weight. Because talking about teamwork, if you really believe in teams, then you believe that teams get better over time. Because it's true, people who work together, the more they work together, the better they get. But if you're in a situation where you have to lay off a quarter of your staff every 2 years, you're not going to keep your teams together. And you're not going to get that momentum. And So we're very optimized for longevity, and longevity partly means diversity, so we can keep shifting our weight. Yeah?
I have a question about creativity and curiosity. So you seem to have all that, you seem to be very curious and very creative, and you probably were born with all that. But I'm wondering, how do you keep that going? You might not have that problem, but when you hire people in your case, and so that they're less creative than others, less curious than others, do you have tips? Do you give them tips to build that, to keep that?
Curiosity is one of the greatest mysteries of human psychology. It is not well studied because psychologists tend to study that which causes suffering, right? Because psychologists are interested in two things: preventing suffering and predicting human behavior, right? And those are fine things to care about. But what about like the good and positive things? Well, that's not troubling anybody, so we don't study it. Curiosity may be the single most important aspect of the 21st century. When I was growing up, like, I don't know, 1970s, 1980s, if I wanted to learn about electronics or something, what am I going to do? I go to the library, find some big dense book that I don't understand. I'll go ask around friends. Nobody knows anything about it. I tried to go on this electronics expedition when I was like 11 years old, and I couldn't find anything. And eventually, after like a year, some science teacher's like, oh, I've got some old bits and parts and like this little manual from a mail course I took, and I learned a little bit from that, but it took a year. Today, some kid who wants to learn about electronics, he goes to YouTube. Here's like 150 videos telling you how to make a death robot in the next 20 minutes. Right? Here's all the pieces and parts, and here's how you do it. Curious people can now learn anything they want. And so this is creating, and I'm already seeing this thing I call the curiosity gap, where the people who are curious, they race ahead because they can specialize their exploration to anything they want. And the people who are not curious are just left behind with whatever regular education is teaching them. Then the weird part is, if that's really true, that curiosity is the most important aspect of education, are we measuring that? We don't even know how to measure curiosity, and we don't know. You said maybe you're born with it. We have no idea. If we're born with it, can it be instilled? Is there a thing that can be done with preschoolers to make them more curious? Or we know we can make people less curious. I remember a Japanese professor coming to Randy Couch and said, I am amazed by the creativity of your students. Is this an American thing? What do the American schools do that foster such curiosity and creativity? And Randy thought about it and he said, I don't think it's like that. I think it's just, when you look at our school system and your school system, our school system is less efficient at stamping out creativity. So we know we can kind of stamp it out, but can we build it? I don't know. If I had like an infinite amount of money to spend, I would definitely start a foundation for the study and understanding of curiosity. But the question, how do you foster it in people? I think it's partly you give them a chance to explore things. That's partly why we do the Jam Week thing. We stop things and are like, we're gonna let you explore what you want to explore, because by respecting people's personal interests and curiosity, then it can kind of foster and grow a little bit. Other than respecting it, I don't much know what to do. Other questions? Yeah.
So design affects a lot of things in science: experiments, models, figures. Can you give us some general design advice? You teach design, so how do you teach design thinking?
Right. Okay. Well, the most important design advice is iterate. Always, always, always. That's what it is. Plan to iterate. One of the rules that we have is, if you have a project that has a calendar, you need to have everything, all the fundamental features working halfway through, so that you can spend the rest of the other half of the time making it better, 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 better. And that really is the secret to design. Build prototypes, try it, because there are no easy answers. If you just talk and talk and talk about it, it doesn't get anywhere. But if you build stuff and you're like, oh, that doesn't work, and this works in a way I didn't think, then eventually you're going to get to something that's good. And I think that often goes wrong with experiments. People feel like I can't actually do any experimenting until the official experimentation period begins. No, just start doing some stuff now and learning what works and doesn't work, so that by the time you're designing, a real experiment, you know the tricky stuff that can go wrong. So So are we out of time?
We're getting there.
We're getting it. So it sounds like we take another couple questions if anybody has it. Yeah.
With the advent of things like Steam, you have a huge proliferation of independent game designers.
Yes, Null Point is now up on Steam Early Access.
Yes. And you kind of talked about that, how that affects the market, but how do you feel that it affects you creatively? Because rather than there being a handful of places that the majority of games are coming from, now anybody can come up with any idea, no matter what it is conceivably, and get it out there. How does that affect it from a creative standpoint?
It changes a lot of things. Firstly, there's just so much more good stuff out there. And if you're used to, I'm going to ignore everything out there and I'm just going to focus on my thing, that you can really backfire. You really want to drink in everything that's kind of going on out there. So one of the great the positives for creativity is that you see so many more best practices. There's just so much more access to better stuff, and that's really positive. The daunting part is, oh my God, everything feels like it's been done. Anything that you do, it's like, oh no, someone's already doing that. People always want to shoot ideas down with that. No, someone already did that, right? Really, but did they do it exactly like what we're going to do? Because we don't even really know where we're going. We have this idea about where we're going. Raph Koster is a great game designer. Novice game designers always worry about, oh, I can't tell people my ideas, somebody's going to steal them. And his point is, really, like, if they, first of all, probably no, they've got their own ideas to worry about. They've got more ideas than they know what to do with. But secondly, if they did, and they worked on it, and then you worked on it, you'd probably build two totally different things. And do you really care if someone steals your idea and builds something that you would have never built? Is that really a problem? So one of the things I think we're all learning is to share more, that the sharing is good. It feels it's uncomfortable to do that. So one for us is we have this virtual reality game called I Expect You to Die, right? And it was all based on this discovery we'd made about how the human mind works with the mouse that blew our minds about using the fact that, oh, it's hard to describe, but the idea is you can use the mouse to reach into a virtual world. That's kind of understandable, that the mouse slides, so I should be able to do that. But the weird part is, what should happen, I'm in the virtual world, I'm using the mouse, I turn my head over here. What should the mouse do now? Can the mouse only grab over here? I can't bring the mouse over here, it's on a cord, it doesn't work like that. What if the mouse kind of goes with my head, the mouse pointer whoop, goes with me, and now I'm reaching out this way and it goes out into the world? And one of our designers said, I think that might work. And I said, no, everyone's going to find that insane. I'm reaching over there like this. That's crazy. And he's like, yeah, you say it's crazy. I'm going to build it. I'm like, whatever. So then he comes to me later in the afternoon, you should try this. And I'm like, this is never going to, oh my God. Right? For whatever reason, the human mind doesn't care. Like your head and your hand are on totally different polar coordinates or something, and it's totally, and like it's intuitive for everyone. And this blew us away. We're like, we've cracked an amazing interface jump ahead in like virtual reality. We better not tell anybody because everyone's gonna steal this. This is so good. And we had that plan for a while, and then we're like, you know what? What if we just put it out there? One of the guys on our team's like, shut up with all this, just put it out there. And okay, we put it out there, and it became really popular. It's been the #1 VR game on the Oculus website for the last 4 months. We just won a bunch of awards for it. And this is how the world works now. You win awards for an unfinished game on an unreleased platform. We all hope one day it'll make some money, but we'll see about that. And so I think that's one of the big wrestling matches now is kind of how much do you want to share what you're working on. Now what we're finding is sharing is caring. And sharing actually seems to have way more benefits than drawbacks, but it's hard to kind of always feel comfortable with that, especially when you're old like me and you're not used to that. Okay? You guys are running the show.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we could listen to you.
All right, yeah, but do feel free, anybody who wants to, feel free to send me an email. I'd be happy to chat. Thanks very much for having me today.
project for Andy to finish. We got a meeting on at the end of the day today. Hopefully,
battery didn't go out.
It might benefit.
Look at that.